Hello, can you guys hear me now? Uh, because the other one definitely had its problems. So hopefully I can be heard now. Well, I'll just give it a few seconds so that people will join. That way, we'll be able to do this. I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. I was using my laptop. I think Pata jinxed me. As soon as Pata said something, that was when the thing went off. Uh, but we can do this thing again. I'm going to mix it up. I'll be using some Wolof here and English and all that to really deal with this issue and give it the importance that it deserves. Well, anyway, like I was saying, today is the 9th of September, one of the last days about 20 years ago when the world knew normalcy, because 2 days later, something catastrophic would happen that will now require all of us when we travel to have to take our shoes off and do all that. Like the world in the Gambia, we had a similar situation. And on the 21st of July was the last time that the Gambia knew normalcy, because a day later, a group of very vicious criminals would usurp the democratically elected government of the Gambia and install themselves as the leaders of that country. And from there, some of us refused to be quiet. It was a time when the fight for the liberation of our country began, and it was a very lonely fight. So this is why I just want to put this thing in context so that we'll all understand why some of us are still very committed to this fight. I remember in May of 1994, just about 2 months before the coup, as a reporter, I interviewed almost all the political leaders in the Gambia. I interviewed the national president of the PPP, Mr. Kelefa Samba. I interviewed the Secretary General of the NCP, Mr. Sirif Diba, the Secretary General of the GPP, Mr. Asad Musa Kamara, and Halifa Sallah. And the interview was centered on the inauguration of Nelson Mandela as the president, the first black president of South Africa. And I remember the pride in Mr. Kelefa Samba's voice on the prominence that Jawara was giving at that swearing-in ceremony. I remember that very well. But things changed. 2 months later, Gambians lived in fear because there was a new order. A group of ragtag soldiers decided to usurp, like I said earlier, the democratically elected government of the Gambia and install themselves as the new leaders of that country. And our Gambia, just like the world, lost normalcy. I was then opposed to the Jawara regime. Everybody who knew me to have been an opposition to Jawara and his government. But my conscience could not allow me to just accept the new dispensation. Because by then, I've developed my love for human rights and believe that power can only be derived from the will of the people or through the will of the people. And in spite of the fact that I was opposed to the Jawara regime, I did not see any need for a military to come and overthrow that government. And I watched how things were unfolding, the threats to journalists, the arrogance of the military, the abuse of taxi drivers on the highways. And I remember ministers of the PPP being arrested for a second time. They were manhandled, we heard. And I remember again, as a reporter again, I remember calling the current Chief Justice of the Gambia, Mr. Hassan Jallow, for an interview. And he said to me, well, Mr. Jow, I really appreciate everything you're doing because I've been watching or reading your articles in the Observer and New Citizen newspaper. But I would rather not say anything now. I said, okay. I called the late Kama Baji, and he said to me, Mr. Jow, I'm too old for this. I would rather not say anything. I remember when decree number 4 came, and I went to interview the same Hassan Musa Kamara. He felt very uncomfortable to say a word for fear of violating the decree. Sirif Diba will not pick up my calls for an interview. I knew then that our country had changed, that there needed to be a struggle to ensure its liberation. Then I saw a friend, a colleague, Jibril Say, butchered to death on November 11, 12, 1994. And we said we have to take a stand. And I'm not even talking about the arrest of Khalifa and Syria. But I said, you know what? I'm going to take a stand irrespective of the peril. I took a stand against the dictatorship, not because I hated Yahya Jammeh, because I didn't know him. Not because I supported the PPP. No, I did not. But conscience told me that the right thing to do is to do right by the Gambian people. And I believed and continue to believe that doing right by the Gambian people is ensuring that the governance system that we have is one that respects the fundamental human and constitutional rights of all Gambians. And this was the fight that we waged until I left and came to the United States. And I continued that journey to make sure that we'll have a Gambia of liberty, dignity, and prosperity for all. And what people must understand, sometimes when you speak, they tell you that, oh, you know what, forget about this and all that, you hate Jammeh, and no, or you're doing it for position. No. I can guarantee you, the most convenient thing at the time when Jammeh came to power was to support Jammeh. It was convenient. Because I was not a PPP supporter, I didn't have to shed a tear for them. And it would have been understood and excusable if I had chosen to support Jammeh. But I said no, because it was not about the individual. It was about a set of beliefs that I have in myself, that no right must be abrogated by anybody, and irrespective of whose rights they are. We continued that fight until we came to the United States, and we continued that. And throughout that period, we continue to see Gambians, young and old, being tortured, being jailed, being disappeared. Remember Kurosise, a young man, killed, never given a chance. And that became the story of our country for 22 long years. And during that period, some of us who are friends today did not even know each other. We came from different locations around the country, but we are united by one thing, and that is what was good for our country and our people. We became comrades in arms, having our meetings, hours at a time, all geared towards one thing, that is a Gambia of liberty, dignity, and prosperity. I did not know an Adama Barrow yet then, or a lot of these people that are running around today. But they were also part of the struggle because it was a very big struggle. It was not monolithic. We had one enemy, that was Jammeh and his crimes, but we had different groups who felt different things or different methods were to be taken to liberate our people. So this was why we were part of this, and this is why we are still part of it. We tried so many things, from coalitions, used our monies, our times, everything humanly possible was used. In fact, it went to an extent that I made it a principle that I will never recruit anybody into the struggle. And I don't think you'll find a person who tells you that coach saw me and said, come and join us. Because I believe it was something that needed conscience and not something that was supposed to be pushed into people, because I knew how difficult it was and what we were asking people to do. It was a lonely one. Sometimes we'll be out in the streets in sub-zero temperatures with our banners. And sometimes it would in fact be necessary to have those hand warmers. You put it in your gloves so that you'll be able to hold the banners. And this was happening not because we were idle people. This was happening because our Gambian people, our fellow citizens, were being victimized on a daily basis by the regime that was led by Yahya Jammeh. The victimization of the Gambian people is the reason why there was a struggle. And when the change happened, a change that happened as a result of the collective work of all Gambians on the ground and in the diaspora. It happened because Gambians were fed up with their rights being abrogated on a daily basis. Gambians were disgusted with what Jammeh was doing to our Gambian people. And this was why people went and voted overwhelmingly to banish him from the leadership of that country. Because if you look at the numbers, about 60% of the Gambian voters voted against Yahya Jammeh. When Adama Barrow came to power, Adama Barrow came to power as a result of the victimization of those Gambians. Because let's just be honest. Adama Barrow would have never been the flag bearer of the UDP if the vast majority of the UDP executive were not in jail. Amadou Sane would have been a logical choice, or a whole host of other people who could have been the candidates of the UDP. But because of the death of Solo Sending, which led to the coming out and protest by the UDP executive, Adama Barrow would not have been. That's the reason, sorry, that why Adama Barrow was selected as the leader of the UDP. So meaning that Adama Barrow's presidency was not a normal presidency. It happened as a result of the total abuse of our people. So to see Adama Barrow today wake up and decide that I am going to hobnob not only with Jammeh's enablers, but with Jammeh himself, that is not only a betrayal of the struggle that we've waged, but it is an insult to the many victims of Yahya Jammeh. I've met a lot of them. I've been to the victim center and met with victims. I've met a man who has HIV/AIDS, who was subjected to Yahya Jammeh's criminal treatment program. I saw a lady who pulled out a bullet, the remnants of a bullet, from her bag and showed it to me and said that she had been holding onto that bullet since April 10th, 2000. We've all seen the stories of the many Gambians during the TRRC process. But Adama Barrow has proven to be a person who cannot be trusted, because every promise that he has made to Gambians, he has reneged on those promises. And now he has not only stopped at failing us with false promises, he has decided to insult the legacy of our struggle and the victims of Yahya Jammeh by deciding that out of everybody in that world, in the country, that because of political expediency, that Yahya Jammeh is the best person that he can ally with. Because let's be clear, this coalition, and I've seen people peddle this nonsense, APRC is a registered political party, APRC is a legal political party. There is nothing wrong with forming a coalition with the APRC. I think that is a fallacy. The whole coalition between the NPP and APRC, I call it the Yahya Jammeh Adama Barrow coalition, is premised on one thing and one thing only, on Yahya Jammeh. You've seen the APRC leadership. Everything they talked about is what? Yahya Jammeh's properties, unconditional amnesty for Yahya Jammeh. He needs to be accorded the right to come back to the country so that he would live his life as a former head of state. He should be accorded everything that a former head of state is supposed to be accorded. That is all that they are talking about. They do not care about anything else. Anything else they do not care about. The only thing that they care about is Yahya Jammeh today, Yahya Jammeh tomorrow, Yahya Jammeh the next day. So this notion that this whole thing is about two legal political parties entering into a coalition is a fallacy. This is a coalition for Yahya Jammeh, about Yahya Jammeh and only Yahya Jammeh. This is why the audience that you heard, we had an agreement with them, so you guys must talk to them to make sure that they honor that promise. It's all about Yahya Jammeh. So for Adama Barrow, he is looking at, with this agreement, we just have to be blunt. He is looking at Solo Sendeng's wife. He is looking at Solo Sendeng's kids. He's looking at all the victims and telling them, you can go to hell. You do not matter to me. What matters to me is my continued self-perpetuation in power so that I will continue to be the president of the Republic of the Gambia. And I will do it at your expense. I do not care that I'm rubbing salt and pepper in your wounds again. I do not care that that you are grieved. I do not care that you are still suffering from the memories of the tortures, the disappearances, and everything that happened to you or your families. So, in essence, this whole thing, coalition, is premised on the selfish interest of two of the most selfish leaders that Gambia had ever had, and that is Yahya Jammeh and Adama Barrow. That's where it is centered on. And I find it very sad that some of our colleagues in the struggle, this is why, you see, whatever you do in life, especially when you're in politics and activism, it must be anchored on principles and conscience. If it is not anchored on principles and conscience, then you are not an activist. Because the person who does not have the principle to say no to something that is convenient as a result of what is right cannot be trusted as an activist. There is nothing that is sadder than seeing the rationalization of this whole thing by people who yesterday, just 2017, were saying that Jammeh must never be accorded any respect, that he does not deserve it because of the many Gambians that he had raped, he had tortured, he had killed. So today, those people are speaking with double tongue because they are trying to rationalize it. And they make these very ridiculous arguments. And that is, well, if Barrow did not do it, UDP would have done it, or GDC would have done it, or another political party would have done it. And it reminds me of something. During the struggle, when Jammeh killed, and we talked about it, they say when he unconstitutionally, illegally, unlawfully butchered 9 prisoners, his supporters will come and tell you, you know what, well, the United States of America, Mugini, the police are killing people every day. To borrow from Musa Jek, the false equivalences. Just because the UDP has a Modi Sabali or Suku Sinyate, before he now went to Barrow, should not excuse anybody else to say, you know what, just because somebody has done it, I am going to do it again. This is why people must always be guided by conscience and respect for their beliefs. Because if you believe in something, you would never allow that belief to go away just because of what is before you is convenient. The reality of the matter is, all those that are at the NPP, my friend and former colleague, we work together in the same newsroom, New Citizen newspaper. Mr. Ibrahim Silla, Honorable Ibrahim Silla, today is in the same team with Yahya Jammeh, because voting for Adama Barrow is definitely voting for Yahya Jammeh, period. That's what it is. If you vote for NPP, you are by extension voting for and endorsing all the abuses and excuses, excusing Jammeh's abuse of the Gambian people. Period. That's what it is. You see, some people will bring you Bagbo, Laurent Bagbo. I've even said that argument made. That, oh, you see, who would have thought Laurent Gbagbo is back in Ivory Coast? Yes, but guess where Gbagbo went to? He was subjected to a court trial at The Hague. He won his case, making him a free man. If Jammeh was subjected to a trial, and that court of law acquit and discharge him, nobody would have the audacity to say he cannot come back to the country, or he should not be giving this or that. But isn't it ironic that the same government that created the TRRC, the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparation Commission, to look into the atrocities that were committed by Yahya Jammeh, is the same government that cannot even wait for the report to come before they act, but would act like, you know what, let's just ignore it. When millions of Gambian dollars were spent on that project. But there is something that I used to tell people who were friends with Yahya Jammeh, the Lengante Sao, the Yaga. Hamga Sao, I think they call it concopine. I think that's what is popcopine. I don't remember the name, whatever they call it. Is this Degisao? Hamga Degisao. We used to use it for hunting, you know. Lengante Sao. When you hug that, it's not going to take long. And that's Yahya Jammeh. Yahya Jammeh is not somebody that you can do a deal with. I can tell you that, Arawa Barrow. And I know that you're making the worst political mistake of your career. Yes, porcupine. Munguk, thank you very much. That's what it's called. If you hug a porcupine or whatever they call it, believe me, that hug would not last long. And to people, there are people who are saying, you know what, let's just forgive and forget. On the 9th of July, 2014, Honorable Buba Balde died in Senegal. And Yahya Jammeh was the president of the Gambia. He refused for Buba Balde's dead body, lifeless body, a body that could not do any harm to anybody, to be returned to the Gambia and buried. How soon do we forget? Buba Balde's death, we all remember it, in July. He died on the 9th. They would not allow him to be buried in the Gambia. Because to Jammeh, Buba Balde was an enemy. And Buba's crime was he decided to leave the APRC and was planning to form his own political party. That was his crime. So then how do you come and rationalize now, oh, na ñëwaat def lan? For what? So this is why to the victims, we must not despair, especially you, the victims of Yahya Jammeh. We must continue to fight this fight to its logical conclusion. We're not asking for Jammeh's lynching. We're not asking for his extrajudicial punishment. We're not asking for any of those things. All we are asking for is for justice to be done. And those that are talking about reconciliation, there was a saying by Dr. King that true peace is not merely the absence of tension, it is the presence of justice. Because without justice, you cannot have peace. And you cannot have somebody who has been accused of ordering the killings of over 250 Gambians or people to be just left like that and said, you know what, let's just forgive and forget. That cannot happen. And you cannot just decide on your own, Adama Barrow, due to political expediency, to say, you know what, I'm just going to decide, and Jame will come back and we'll forget and move on. I remember one of your ministers, senior ministers, he's still in your cabinet. I had a conversation with him and I told him, you know what, I don't know what you guys are doing, but the worst mistake that you will ever commit will be to have a deal with Yaya Jammeh where he just comes back to the Gambia as a free man. And that minister, I'm waiting for him to see what he's going to say, told me, Pa, I said, yes, that's never going to happen. You cannot kill people and just come and expect that you live in this country like that. That was what that minister told me. I'm not going to say his name yet, but it will come out pretty soon. I'm waiting to see what he's going to say. But you see, political expediency has been the biggest problem in the world. And wherever you have it, when people make mistakes or make decisions based on what benefits them politically, it always leads to, in the long run, instability. Because unless the victims have a say in this, you are doing nothing but pretty much fanning the flames of discord and possible instability. And Adama Barrow is somebody that Gambians need to watch very closely. We saw his reaction, other than just his dishonesty. I'm going to say that. Because every time you make an agreement with people and then renege on that agreement, that's dishonest. It's his tendencies. We've seen his response to Dr. Sise. We've seen his response to when Halifa said there was no system change, but there is regime change. And we saw recently his response to the chairman of the Basi Area Council, in which he even had to come and apologize. We've also seen him make fun and laugh at former prisoners, political prisoners. And every step that he's taking, is leading to somebody who is more and more interested in entrenching himself in power and curtailing fundamental rights and freedom. When Adama Barrow said that come after December 4th, when they see a view that is for him, that he would instruct the IGP to deny permits to political parties for rallies, that was the Adama Barrow that was speaking. You see, when people show you their character, sometimes just accept it and know that that's who they are. And this is a right that he does not have. He does not have the powers to do that. But he would overreach because he's surrounded by people who know nothing but that. So just to cut this thing short, I just wanted to tell you that this unholy alliance between Yaya Jammeh and Adama Barrow is an insult to Gambians, an insult to the victims of the country, and it also shows the dishonesty and unreliability of Adama Barrow. And if you want justice, freedom, and human rights, you should not vote for Adama Barrow, because the democracy that we are enjoying now is as a result of the resilience of the Gambian people. Because left to Adama Barrow alone, all his utterances, we would have been somewhere else. And finally, voting for APRC, NPP coalition is a vote for Yaya Jammeh and a vote for a return to the days of Yaya Jammeh. Yaya Jammeh is not somebody who would come and just quietly sit in a corner. That's not him. That is not him. He would want to have a say in how our country is run. And I have no so I would not be surprised. I have no doubt absolutely in me that Yaya Jammeh would want to destabilize that country, because he would want to control everything. And Adama Barrow, who has surrounded himself with Jammeh's biggest enablers and people who are driven by political expediency and not what is right by the Gambian people, will continue to clap for him, to urge him on, because to them all that matters is the results of December 4th. But there is more to Gambia and the victimization of the Gambians for 22 years than winning an election. And if Adama Barrow does not do right by the Gambian people, I doubt he would ever be remembered as the president that he wants to be. He would forever be remembered as the biggest betrayer in the history of our politics. Because everything that Adama Barrow had said, you saw the videos, and I'm glad that they put all those things together. Everything he said about Jammeh and his dictatorship, today he does not care about that. All he cares about is to continue to be president of the Republic of the Gambia at the expense of the victims and everything that we fought for 22 years. And I'm just going to end with this. This has nothing to do with Adama Barrow, but I saw this nonsense that is being peddled using religion to try to delegitimize Essa Fall's candidacy. I say to Essa, I'm not supporting you. I'm supporting my own party. But do not be bothered by that nonsense, and Gambians must not listen to that foolishness, especially coming from people who just in 2016 were busy supporting Yaya Jammeh's candidacy after Yaya was jailing our what do they call them? Our imams for simply praying. We must reject that kind of politics. The politics that is based on sectionalism, one that is based to divide our people, based on religion or tribe or any of these other nonsenses. Gambia has bigger problems today than the Ahmadiyas. At least they are not going around killing people or torturing people or getting into an agreement with the devil who had killed so many of our people. This fight will continue, the struggle continues, and we definitely will win. We'll not rest until Jammeh is brought to justice. That way, we'll have at least some semblance of deterrence to ensure that nobody is going to come again, abrogate the rights of the people. No leader, kill our people, and just go scot-free. Those days are over. This is a different world now. Tic for tac. Moo tax mag ñi di wax ne ñu ne yàlla tey ji ab waxambaane la loo ko def mu fay la ko right away du xaar sax ba ëllëg. With that, thank you guys so very much, and let's keep on keeping on. We will win. Again, vote for Jammeh. If you vote for Barrow and Jammeh, you are voting to bring back 22 years of dictatorship, torture, disappearance, murder, the pillaging of our resources back to the Gambia. The Gambia needs to move forward, and it cannot move forward with Yaya Jammeh as part of our government. If you vote for Barrow, you are voting for Yaya Jammeh to be part of the next government of the Gambia. And that is totally unacceptable, immoral, unethical, and definitely must not be done. With that, guys, thank you also very much.